Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning and welcome to Facing South Florida. There are fewer than 45 days until Election Day, but I think that's the wrong way to think about it. We no longer have an election day, we have election weeks. In 2016, 75% of the vote in Miami-Dade was cast before Election Day, either through early voting or mail-in ballots. So the election is now, and we will be focusing our attention in the coming weeks on a few key races. One race getting some attention is a Miami-Dade School Board contest between Luisa Santos and County Commissioner Dennis Moss, who's term limited from that post. Santos was brought to the United States from Colombia when she was just 8 years old by her mother and learned she was undocumented while in high school. She is now a U.S. citizen. So I started my interview by asking her, why is she running?
As a proud product of our public schools, I know the potential that our public schools have to change lives and what they can do in their best form. As a district, we have come a long way, but we have a long way to go, and we need energetic leadership that's going to get us the rest of the way there. We still face rampant inequalities within our district. We also face because of COVID, a really challenging 21st century problem that requires 21st century solutions. I have been an undocumented student, an English language learner student in our schools, but I've also been able to have experience in the classroom when I was placed as an assistant fourth grade teacher through my education program at Georgetown, when I worked with the Undersecretary of Education at the Federal Department of Ed, when I led a third grade literacy program for underserved students in DC, and of course as a small business owner, I've had the honor of employing at this point many high school and college students and seeing the deficiencies that still exist in our system. And I know that all those experiences have prepared me to serve my community on this board.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. You mentioned before that you came to this country from Colombia. You, as I understand it, you discovered sometime during high school that you were actually undocumented. Talk to me about a little bit about that journey that your parents took, or I'm assuming you came here with your parents, and just sort of walk me through learning that you were undocumented and the impact that that had on you, because you're a U.S. citizen now.
Of course, yes, I am, proudly so. So when I was 8 years old, my parents were separating, and my mother decided that that the education that my sister and I could receive in this country was worth leaving everything. So we landed in South Dade and enrolled in public schools, and my mother started cleaning 3 homes a day to make ends meet. And schools and teachers and counselors poured into me, so I was student government president, straight A student, thought I was headed straight for an Ivy League. And as a high school junior, when I was trying to start a mentoring program for our district for middle schools, I registered with the district as a volunteer. I asked my mom, well, what's my social security number for this form? And she told me, well, you don't have one. And that was the first time I realized, because luckily in our school system, undocumented or not, everyone's the same, right? In the K-12 system. Well, when it comes to higher ed, there's a difference. This was before the DREAM Act, this was before DACA. And so I started at Miami-Dade College paying out-of-state tuition. And I am beyond grateful for the very formative years I spent there, because not only did I get to grow as a student and leader, I also had the chance to meet Dr. Eduardo Padron, who's become a lifelong mentor of mine. And after 2 years at Miami-Dade and fighting for the DREAM Act at a national level, fighting for public funding for higher ed at the state level, and locally on campus doing some initiatives, I actually met with Dr. Padron and I said, can I please volunteer in your office? This institution has given me so much. And I had just received my green card, and he said, no, Luisa, it would be my pleasure to hire you and be your first real job. And so I worked in the president's office at Miami-Dade College as my first job after receiving my residency. But the truth is that many undocumented students, documented students today need support, need representation, and need to know that there are programs that exist out there for them to continue their education.
As someone who's undocumented or was undocumented, you understand that struggle. I'm curious as to what your reaction was to the comments by your opponent in this race. You're running against County Commissioner Dennis Moss, who is term limited from his stint at the county commission. He's now running for a seat on the school board, and he recently talked about, you know, how he voted to support, you know, keeping undocumented folks in the county jail system as part of an agreement with ICE. And he seemed to suggest that his support for that was in part due to the belief that immigrant groups had not been supportive of Black issues. What was your reaction when you heard what he said?
Jim, those policies have real consequences. As I just told you about my first job, when I left my first day on that job, I got a call that my father had been detained. And that ICE policy, that policy that Commissioner Moss voted for almost got my father deported. So when I heard that, as I've said, immigrant rights are not transactional, Black rights are not transactional, students' rights are not transactional, and they never will be to me. It's about doing what's right, period. And to try to, and by the way, I have an extremely robust plan how we close the inequities that exist between our Black and white students. And I've been protesting in support of Black groups since college, right? So to say that because a group didn't do or is perceived to not have done something, not only dismisses the fact that there are many immigrants who are Black and that Black immigrants are disproportionately detained, but it also steps away from doing what is right and veers into doing what's transactional. We can't allow politics to get in the way of protecting our students and fighting for them. So it's very personal to me, and you can count on me to never treat this seat or my policies as transactional.
So let's talk a little bit about some of your beliefs and some of your policies. I want to try to understand, because one of the criticisms of you is that you're a member of a board of a group called PS 305, which receives its funding from a group called 50 CAN, which is very much pro charter schools, pro vouchers. PS 305 has had similar policies. You know, are you supportive of vouchers and charter school programs? Is that what you want to see happen and expanded?
No, absolutely not. I am unequivocally supportive of our public schools first and foremost, because as I just told you my life story, what I want to do is build that system of schools that gave me everything. So I am anti-voucher. I think we need to have total equal playing field between our charter and our public schools. We need to ensure that there is accountability for all schools serving our children. And as I say every time, we need to ask the questions. Why are parents and students choosing those charter schools? And then my role as a public school board member will be to make sure that any deficiency that exists, I am working around the clock to fill in our public schools. I believe public schools are the foundation of our democracy, and you can count on me to support them. The work that I have done with PS 305 has been that of educating low-income parents and ensuring that they know how to be self-advocates. And PS 305 does that in partnership with public schools. And guess what? Those parents decided that the issue they wanted to tackle was better social-emotional learning in our public schools. So they have been meeting with school board members and pushing this campaign for our public schools to provide social-emotional learning, because they were tired of the sole focus on high-stakes testing.
The K-12 project that was initiated by Superintendent Carvalho to try to have online learning take place ended up being a gigantic debacle. Some of it had to do with cyber hacking, but even that, it was really a dysfunctional system. Where do you place the blame for that?
You know, Jim, I think as has been stated by both K-12 and our superintendent and our board, there were over-promised deliverables and under-delivered deliverables. So I always like to look forward, right? What are the solutions that we're gonna put in place moving forward? One, we need to listen to our teachers and our parents and our students and center their voice. Teachers had a lot of ideas about how we could have done this differently. And unfortunately, in some cases, they got their surveys after even a school board had already approved some plans. So for me, it's about centering that voice, investing in our digital infrastructure and cybersecurity. We see that we have significant ways to go there, and that needs to be a priority. And then, of course, ensuring that as a board, we have oversight of what is going on and are asking for realistic timelines. I mean, we should have been having these conversations much earlier on than we actually did. So, you know, I'm happy to see that the relationship is over because what was promised was not delivered. And moving forward, I'm watching, you know, a learning management system, which is what a lot of other districts had in place and they were able to use to transition into online learning. We have an RFP out that's been out since January. And my questions still remain on, we need to get that piece in place and ensure that we invest in our, like I said, digital infrastructure and cybersecurity.
Do you have confidence in Alberto Carvalho to remain as superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools?
You know, I think that he has done an incredible job in many ways. And like I said, we still have such a long way to go. I think that there are many things he has done that I agree with, some that I disagree with. And, you know, I will continue to watch closely what the continued leadership looks like over the next few weeks, because right now is really, you know, the moment when leadership is tested. And I continue to watch closely, knowing that that we need better plans in this moment.
I'm not sure I completely understand the answer. So you do have confidence or you don't have confidence in Alberto Carvalho?
You know, my confidence in this moment is tested by the K-12 debacle.
I invited Dennis Moss to come on the show and address his comments about immigrants, as well as discuss his plans for the school board, but he refused. Up next, the battle for the Caribbean vote in Broward and Dade counties.